Death Note is about the brilliant high school student Light Yagami who finds a notebook that can kill anyone whose name he writes in it. Convinced that he can build a utopia devoid of crime, Light starts using the Death Note to carry out justice by targeting criminals. However, his actions attract the attention of a brilliant detective known as L, who seeks to unmask Kira, the apparent perpetrator behind the murders. What ensues is a high-stakes battle of wits, mind games, and eating popcorn in which either side is light or intention away from winning the eternal battle. The episode 10 arc of the first half of Death Note is now available as well, going through a deep, exhausting power struggle between Light and L. In this episode, the narrative centers on a high school student, Light Yagami, who is both bright and cynical. During this time, he comes across a cosmic notebook titled Death Note, which has the unique ability to end the life of anyone whose name is inscribed in it, as long as the author is familiar with the face of the intended target. At first, he's a bit unsure, but after documenting the details of a criminal on TV during an investigation, he is surprised when the said criminal dies. As he learns more about the Death Note, he realizes just how powerful it can be, and like any god wannabe, he plans to utilize it to eliminate any and all existing criminals. His experiment with the notebook begins to stir troubles all over the globe, where authorities report cases of unexplained deaths. As Light continues to play with his newfound toy, it catches the interest of the authorities, and the world starts looking for a mysterious silhouette known simply as L. When this episode finishes, both characters agree to use and track the notebook to find untold justice. Now, the world has to prepare for a cat and mouse game for who gets this much needed unlimited power first. Light Yagami has now grasped the true potential of the Death Note and is utilizing it to its fullest extent in the second episode of Death Note, killing criminals all over the world. Light's sinister actions do not go unnoticed, however, as the mysterious deaths grab the attention of law enforcement agencies around the globe. The enigmatic figure Kira, a serial killer who seems to only murder criminals, now has the world's attention. As the pressure builds, the Japanese police employ the services of the eccentric L, a detective who has made it his mission to stop Kira. L's methods are anything but orthodox, however. He remains discreet about his identity and works behind the veil, and has already deducted that Kira is based in Japan due to the pattern of deaths. At the same time, Light has become more assured about furthering his mission as he sees himself as the necessary evil to make the world a better place. Although he knows L is provoking him, he believes he is smart enough to stay ahead of L no matter what. In the closing scene of the episode, L gets comfortable and antagonizes the institutions in law enforcement. The stage has already been set for an epic struggle of intelligence between L and Light. In this episode of Death Note, the conflict between Light Yagami or Kira and L deepens. He steps forward with his investigation and rather brazenly turns on the camera and states that it does not matter where Kira is hiding, I am going to catch him. This statement makes Light alert, but he trusts himself in dealing with L. At the same time, L is outwitting Light by bringing a more advanced perspective to the situation. He thinks of a way to intertwine L's investigation. Simultaneously, the police task force narrows down the suspects and focus around Japan. They try to guess Kira's next move, assuming it could yield some information to his identity. The truth, though, is that Light is always ahead of everyone and uses the rules of the Death Note to stay free. This episode focuses on the approach that Light employs to empower himself further. By eliminating crime does not make him feel guilty. Guilty wipes away the notion of suspicion that arises from being a normal high school student. Even at this point, his understanding or further comprehension of Kira is questionable and still does not overlap on the true identity of Kira. The episode comes to a close, heightening further the already booming competition between Light and L. A high school student, Light Yagami, single-handedly continues eliminating criminals one by one while still managing to maintain his cover. As this unfolds, L increases his pressure on the task force, suspecting Kira has law enforcement ties, which enables him to eliminate his targets with such precision and pushes the investigation into Kira deeper. Manipulating the Death Note without being tracked is one of Light's many talents. At the same time, this talent allows him to cleanse the world from heinous criminals and in turn providing him more confidence in his endeavors. L's guidance combined with the task force's shift in focus towards the pattern of deaths allow the creation of a theory that Kira employs accomplices or sophisticated means to distance himself from the crime scenes. The episode provides valid proof of the first cat and mouse game between Light and L. Each side prepares to anticipate the opponent's next move while focusing on being a step ahead. L is identified as getting close towards unveiling Light's tactics to push him a step ahead into achieving a complete elimination of criminals, which leaves Light becoming more and more obsessed with his mission. Both Light and L become determined towards the end of the episode, which allows for the battle of tactics to become even deeper. The building tension, which strengthens with each move, allows for both parties to gain an advantage towards their goal. In the 5th episode of Death Note, the confrontation between Light Yagami and L escalates. L, suspecting that Kira might be connected to the police or law enforcement in some way, begins to make more drastic measures to identify him. He orders the task force to monitor a group of high-ranking officers to determine if any of them could be Kira or an accomplice. Light, aware that L is narrowing in on him, continues to play his cards carefully. His resolve to rid the world of criminals strengthens, but so does his anxiety about L's growing suspicion. In an attempt to throw off the investigation, Light makes a risky move by subtly manipulating events to mislead L and the task force, using the Death Note with precision and cunningly create confusion. Meanwhile, a new element is introduced: Ryuk. The Shinigami who originally dropped the Death Note into the human world remains a silent observer. He continues to watch Light's action with amusement, though he makes it clear that he has no intention of interfering in Light's quest. Ryuk's cryptic remarks add an eerie sense of foreboding to the unfolding events. The episode concludes with L setting a trap for Kira, knowing that Kira is likely monitoring the investigation closely. Both Light and L are now fully aware of the high stakes in their battle, each determined to outwit the other. In the 6th episode of Death Note, the cat and mouse game between Light Yagami or Kira and L intensifies. L, suspecting that Kira is someone within the law enforcement system, uses a tactic to gather more information by setting up a task force meeting, inviting a select group of people, including Light's father Soichiro Yagami, who works in the task force. Light is aware that his father is involved, but remains calm, carefully planning his next move. L continues his investigation by suggesting that Kira might be in close proximity to the task force, but Light, aware of the risks, keeps his distance and watches from afar. Meanwhile, Light becomes increasingly cautious, realizing that L is not only highly intelligent, but also unorthodox in his methods. He takes care to avoid any mistakes that could expose him. A critical moment occurs when the task force sets up surveillance to capture Kira, but Light cleverly avoids detection by manipulating events around him. He is shown to be using his intelligence to stay steps ahead, always thinking 2 moves ahead of L's investigation. However, this creates a tense atmosphere as the task force and L grows closer to uncovering Kira's true identity. The episode ends with Light narrowly escaping L's grasp and feeling a mix of satisfaction and unease, knowing the battle of wits is far from over. Both Light and L are locked in a high-stakes duel, with the outcome uncertain. In the 7th episode of Death Note, the tension between Light Yagami and L escalates as the investigation continues. L, now more focused than ever on capturing Kira, devises a strategy to draw him out by creating a public event. He arranges the task force to announce that they will hold a press conference, stating that they are close to catching Kira. This is meant to provoke Kira into making a move, as L believes that Kira cannot resist the urge to act and prove his power. Light, fully aware of L's plan, carefully monitors the situation, calculating his next steps. Despite being under increasing pressure, Light remains calm and continues his goal of eliminating criminals without revealing his identity. He uses his knowledge of the Death Note's rules to orchestrate his actions with precision, making sure that he doesn't fall into L's trap. Meanwhile, a significant development occurs when a new character, Misa Amane, is introduced. Misa is a popular idol who admires Kira and sees him as a hero. She has a deep personal connection to Kira as her parents were murdered by criminals, and she has obtained a death note of her own. Misa's introduction sets the stage for further complications in the battle between Light and L. The episode ends with Light becoming aware of Misa's involvement, setting up a new layer of complexity in the already tense game of cat and mouse. In the 8th episode of Death Note, the tension between Light Yagami and L continues to build as new development occurs. Misa, who is unaware of Light's identity, decides to take matters into her own hands. She confronts Light, convinced that he is Kira, and reveals that she too possesses a Death Note. This revelation shocks Light, and he begins to assess how he can use Misa's devotion to his advantage while also considering the risks that come with her newfound knowledge. Meanwhile, L remains relentless, focused on capturing Kira. He notices the pattern of Kira's actions shifting in response to the new developments, which leads him to suspect that Kira might be working with an accomplice. However, L is still far from confirming the connection between Light and Kira. The episode ends with Light realizing that he has a potential ally in Misa, but also facing the challenge of managing this new variable while continuing to outsmart L. The game between Light and L grows even more complex, and the stakes are higher than ever with Misa's involvement. In the 9th episode of Death Note, the tension between Light Yagami and L escalates as Misa Amane, now fully aware of Kira's mission, becomes more involved in the deadly game. After confirming that Light is Kira, Misa decides to aid him in his mission. However, Light, while intrigued by Misa's devotion, realizes that her presence could be both a potential asset and a dangerous complication. Light and Misa are both being watched by the task force, which is growing more suspicious of the connection between the two. To avoid suspicion and protect his identity, Light uses his influence to manipulate Misa into helping him eliminate more criminals without raising red flags. Meanwhile, L intensifies his investigation, suspecting that Kira may have an ally. He begins to tighten the noose around Light and his network, pushing the investigation further into a corner. Despite the mounting pressure, Light maintains his composure, using his intelligence to stay ahead of L's efforts. The episode ends with a sense of heightened tension as Light and Misa work together, navigating the dangers of being caught while continuing their mission. L, on the other hand, is closing in, and the stage is set for an even more complex game of strategy and manipulation.